welcome back to Whiskey and Watches with Nick. This is our fourth episode, and we've finally moved away from Islay, quite away from Islay actually, into the northern reaches of the Highlands to Clynelish. Kind of an obscure bottle. I'll tell you how I decided to buy it, but first, wrist check. Tonight I'm wearing my good old Orient Ray 2 Raven edition. Not doing it any justice with the angle there. Trust me, fantastic value watch, one of my old favorites, and still gets into my rotation on a semi-regular basis these days. So, back to the Clynelish. Not the single most well-known distillery out of all of the Highland operations. One that I'd sort of heard about, and one that had one reputed characteristic that really caught my attention, which specifically is its alleged, and I quote numerous sources, waxy characteristics. Well, I wanted to try a waxy whiskey. I mean, why wouldn't I? Did it deliver on that waxy goodness? Let's get into it in a little bit and find out. For those of you who aren't familiar with Clynelish, it is a Highland distillery. It's located in the little peninsula the peninsula that juts out to the north of, Scotland. Kind of, if you look at a map, it's north of Glenmorangie and it's south of Old Pulteney, which are landmarks only to people who really drink a lot of whiskey, probably. On the bottle, it says they were established in 1819. They're reaching a little bit. I believe the Clynelish distillery itself was opened in the 70s, maybe 69, around there. It's a fairly young distillery. It's the successor operation to the Brora distillery, which was opened in 19 by the Marquess of something, Sutherland, I think, which would make sense because that's on the bottle. So the old guy owned the whole show back then. So apparently the old Brora whiskeys, say that 5 times fast or once slowly, were actually really, really, wait for it, waxy. My opinion, that unfortunately hasn't survived in a really strong way in the successor product here. That said, I'm really enjoying this whiskey. I've been working on it for, why lie, really only a couple of nights, and yeah, I'm down well past the shoulders. So I feel like I've gotten to know it a little bit at this point. And while there definitely are some waxy notes that come and go, I wouldn't say it's, it's waxy for a whiskey. So let's take it to the nose again here. Hints of like a fruity beeswax come and go off it. They're not nearly as pronounced as I would like them to be, unfortunately. That said, it's really a very rich, very interesting whiskey. So, notes of the beeswax that come and go. A little bit of vanilla, hints of spice and pepper. On the palate, it's complex. This is not a simple whiskey. This is not an easy whiskey to characterize, which is part of why I've really been enjoying it so much. And it's a variable whiskey. I've experienced it multiple different ways, just, in a few nights of working through a couple drams a night on it. Just now, I got actually a reasonable amount of peat, a little vegetal note on the finish. But in the palate, a little bit of peat with some vanilla, something that could be considered perhaps beeswaxy or Swedish, not Swedish, sweet-ish beeswax or candles. Big complex finish, long finish. A little oak, no sherry, thank goodness. No smoke, boo. But it doesn't need it with the peat and the waxy sweet notes. Don't buy this expecting to be like licking a candle, like I maybe naively was. But definitely a fun, complex, rich whiskey, and something that's a little off the beaten path. It's certainly not a beginner whiskey. You could give this to a beginner and they wouldn't be, put off by it, but it's not a beginner whiskey. It's more of an intermediate whiskey. It's for someone who's trying to branch out beyond, maybe the more accessible blends or the more well-known single malts, regardless of the region which you choose to start with, which is purely a matter of personal taste. Really kind of a fun bottle. Let's give it a couple more tastes and call this. Apple and vanilla with, again, a hint of the candle. Hard to characterize. Try it for yourself. Thank you for joining me. Stay well, stay happy, drink whiskey, love watches, and I'll see you next time.